Welcome to the Plant Trainers Podcast, where we're helping people improve their quality of life through nutrition and fitness. And now, your hosts, nutrition and wellness coaches, international speakers, Adam and Shoshana Chaim.
Hey, I'm Adam Chaim.
And I'm Shoshana Chaim, and we are
Propelled by Plants. Today we bring to you episode 304, Dropping 150 Pounds and Gaining Muscle with Richard Hubbard.
In this episode of the Plant Trainers Podcast, we talk with Richard Hubbard about his amazing transformational story. He was over 350 pounds. He actually doesn't know how much he really was, but it was about 150 pounds that he ended up losing, and he turned into a mean, lean muscle machine. But really, he's not mean. He's actually a really nice guy. We had a blast asking him some questions, really getting into what was different, because a lot of the people we talked to about their transformational stories, just like Richard, this wasn't the first time that they tried to lose weight or had lost weight. So what really was different about it this time? And that's what we talked to him about as well. You'll hear about his challenges, you'll hear about his wins, and you'll hear about some of the amazing athletic tasks that he has coming up.
For those who don't know Richard, he's really active on social media, and he's one of those guys that's willing to help out anyone he can, any way he can. So as you'll hear later, don't be afraid to hit him up if you have questions. He's in Connecticut, for those that are in that area. So that's where he is doing all of his training, and he's actually training for his first half marathon, which is coming up June 2nd. So hit him up on social media and wish him luck. He's going to do some great stuff there. He wasn't obese as a child, but he put on a lot of his weight as he went into college, and then when he started with his sedentary jobs. He did a lot of sitting, and that's what really led him to his weight gain. And then after he went for a physical, you know what? I'm not going to tell you the whole story. You'll listen to it. It's pretty fascinating, interesting, and it'll be sure to make an impact. So
be sure to share this out with anybody who is on their weight loss journey already, or if they're ready to just get it started. Copy the link at planttrainers.com and just send it over to them.
One of the best parts of living north is when it finally becomes warm enough to get outside for a run wearing just a t-shirt again. The crisp, cool air helps wick away the sweat while we run, bike, or work out in our Propelled by Plants performance t-shirts printed on the exact same Ironman finisher microfiber material. It's fast absorbing, quick drying, most importantly, UPF 30+. You can also find us showing off our guns in our Training for Life cotton tees. So now's the time to get your own shirt. And since Father's Day is quickly approaching, plan ahead and order one for a father in your life too. Each t-shirt comes with a handwritten note from us because we believe that much in gratitude. And we love you, our listeners. So get your shirts at planttrainers.com/shop or click the link in the show notes. And now for a moment of gratitude.
I'm grateful for this year's Mother's Day. And I think the reason why I'm grateful for it is because I had a realization about Mother's Day about 10 or 11 years later. And what I've realized is that it's not necessarily a day for mothers to do nothing or to be treated like a queen all day. It's a day for mothers to really reflect and stand up and make sure that they're setting the examples that they want to set, and make sure that they are teaching their children the right way to be. So it's not about having the day off. It's about using that day to make sure that you are on the right track and really reflect. And of course, get a few gifts.
I'm grateful for last week, a week and a half ago, I did a 10K race, and I did okay in the race. It wasn't my best, but I had a good day. But after the race, I decided to run back to the starting line, and I ran into Aaron Fisher, who's the Awakening Self on Instagram and who was on our podcast episode 284, and he decided to run back with me. And the conversation that we had and just spending time together during that run back was really what I'm grateful for, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. So thank you.
Rich Hubbard, thanks so much for joining us on the Plant Trainers Podcast today.
Hey, everybody.
We're so grateful that you're here, and we wanted to know if you have a moment of gratitude to share with us.
I do. I would like to thank all the plant-based vegan athletes and plant-based doctors that came before I became plant-based. It made it a lot easier for me, and just the knowledge that they share, I knew I would be all right in my journey.
That's beautiful. You know, I was just reading an article that Adam wrote, and it actually ends off saying that he wants to give thanks to all the plant-based advocates that came before him and all the plant-based advocates that will come after him as well. So that fits in really, really well with, you know, what I've been reading this week, because I kept reading it over and over again for some reason because I was working with it. But, you know, I think that none of us would be where we are without those people that came before us, and that we need to realize that no matter what stage we're at in our journey, we're still going to be inspiration for someone out there, whether we know it or not. So that's a really important moment of gratitude.
And that's one of the reasons why we have this show, because we want to share with everyone that's listening all the amazing people that we have learned from and we continue to learn from through every conversation that we have. And Rich, we know that you've gone through a big transformation in your life, and that's what we wanted to share today, because you are here on this show today going to inspire somebody that's listening to create change or continue a change in their lives. So we'd love for you to take the opportunity to share with us your story of the change of your lifestyle.
I'm sure. I'm more than happy to. Should I start? Or
Yeah, so tell us, you were once at 345 pounds, but there was a lot that brought you towards that point. So
yes.
What was it like, you know, in college? Were you already overweight? What was the story there?
Well, I should start with my childhood because although I wasn't obese, I was on the heavier side for a lot of my teen years. I would say I was probably 20 or 30 pounds overweight. It wasn't out of control as a teen, but in college, I actually got in better shape. I started to work out. I was in the city. I went to Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, New York. So we were in the city all the time, and I used to walk everywhere, and I used to get a ton of exercise, but my diet wasn't bad. I'm sorry, my diet was bad. You know, probably a typical college student diet, but probably even worse. But somehow I kept the weight off, and I think it was because of the exercise. And being my, late teens, early 20s, that probably helped. But it wasn't until after college that I really started to put on the weight. During college, I think my lowest was, about 212 or so, maybe 215. But I'm tall, so 6'3", that wasn't bad. So after college, I got my first job after a couple of years. I was unemployed for a while, couldn't find a job at first. But I was sedentary in my job. The problem is I'm a graphic designer, not that it's a problem, but graphic designer, web designer. And when you sit all day, it's very easy to put on the weight. And that's what I did. Eventually, it ballooned to a point where I stopped weighing myself at 345 pounds. I know I was heavier than that, but I just didn't want to see it hit over 350. I had avoided the doctor all those years as well.
So you avoided the doctor. Was that because you didn't want to hear what your bad habits were doing to your body, or you didn't want to see the scale and all of that?
It was all that. My family has a history of diabetes, heart disease, all those things are in my family history. And I knew in the back of my mind that I was probably pre-diabetic because I was getting problems with my feet. I had the nerve issues, the neuropathy, and I just was scared to death to go to the doctor. I was, and actually, I should have been, excited to go because that's what ended up transforming my life after I finally did. But I was really scared to hear what the results of a physical would be. So I avoided it as long as I could.
So I want to hear the positive of that in just a minute, but you were scared of what the negative was going to be, but at the same time, you totally saw your health declining. You're already having neuropathy.
Right.
I guess you must have been aware that, high blood sugar levels can ultimately lead to death.
Yes.
So that was scary too. So walk me through the psychology of at least getting medication, not at least getting medication in the short term, or if
Right.
that's all you knew about, how you were still avoiding the doctor.
Yeah, I think I was lying to myself in a way. I did some minimal amounts of exercise. I was doing the yo-yo dieting, thinking the dieting would help when I lost a little weight. So I think I talked myself out of my health problems. At least I thought I was at the time, but in reality, it wasn't working.
So if I could just lose 10 pounds, I'll be okay, because then I could just lose 10
that's
more.
what I would think to myself. Yeah.
Right. So what did initiate this lifestyle change?
Yes, I'm very grateful, actually, for the state of Connecticut when they initiated the new health insurance requirements for state workers. I work for a community college as a webmaster, so it's a state job, and they required physicals in order to have the cheaper premium. It was a deal I couldn't pass up because the insurance rates would be probably triple or quadruple what I would pay if I finally faced my fear of going to the doctor. So that did. I thought to myself, well, I gotta finally do this and face my fear. So I made the appointment. I believe it was November of 2011. That was the appointment was made for January, and I started a little bit of exercise. So I wasn't quite as heavy as I probably would have been had I went to the doctor in November. But I really started to work on myself. But I didn't change my diet yet. That wasn't until after I saw the doctor. And
what did the doctor say that created a change?
Yeah, the first appointment, he said the words I'll never forget. He said, "You are morbidly obese." And just hearing those words together, coming from a doctor, that really was a wake-up call. I mean, I always knew I was heavy, but just hearing those words shocked me.
Morbidly, yeah.
Yes, that word just really scared me. He also told me something else that I never expected, because I never thought about my blood pressure. He told me that I was pre-hypertensive, and I never gave that a thought. You know, I was only worried about diabetes. So he said that he would probably put me on meds, but he would give me another appointment to see if my blood pressure would come down. And he also checked my lab work after the first appointment. So the follow-up appointment, I found out, how bad my lab work was. My cholesterol was high, although he wasn't as worried about my cholesterol as he was about my blood pressure. My blood sugar was a little higher, but probably not as bad as had I gone in November, because I was making changes. But my blood pressure was worrisome to him. It was like 140 over 100, or anyway, it was way off. So he says, well, that's it. We got to put you on meds. So I filled the prescription, and then I took a look at the side effects. And I didn't want to deal with the side effects. And I also knew that something my mom had told me when I told her I was going on the blood pressure meds. She said that, well, everybody's on something. And that actually made me work harder to, fight this. I didn't want to be like everybody else and be on meds for the rest of my life, because she's on meds. My dad and stepmom, they're on a ton of meds. They can't sleep ever. My dad has, asthma and COPD and, so many issues that I saw myself going down that road, and I didn't like it. So that's when I knew I needed to make a change.
And I just want to go backwards for a minute, a little bit out of turn, but do you know what contributed to gaining all that weight in the first place? What was making you put it on more and more every year?
I think it was part depression. I didn't know at the time, but I think it was part depressed. I also think back then, if somebody were to leave food, any kind of junk food around, I would eat it all. I was always the go-to person at my office at a different job back then. They would just give me the food. I was like the garbage can. I think it was it was an obsession with eating a lot. I couldn't control myself. And also it didn't help that I was sitting all day. And I can remember in the office back at the newspaper job where I was sitting all day and I would start to get neuropathy in my feet, and because I wasn't moving around at all. And just feeling very strange after hours of sitting. It was just really unhealthy.
So, Rich, not wanting to be like everybody else, not wanting to go on medication, wanting to make a change, where does the courage come from to be able to do that kind of a thing?
I've been pondering that question myself, because I'm more amazed than anybody else that I've been able to make this change. I think it was just that fear of being on meds for the rest of my life. Although I don't know how I ever had that drive. Looking back, I'm amazed that I was able to do it, and I continued that drive. But I really think it was just because of that fear, and also wanting to avoid, getting very sick or dying from obesity. These were things that I finally had to face after seeing the doctor. I really don't know where that drive came from, just beyond wanting to get healthy. I think that's what was the big motivator.
So then how did you find a plant-based lifestyle? Was it the doctor that turned you onto that, or is that something that you found on your own?
My doctor actually, he's one of the old school doctors who told me to just cut out sweets and have lean meats, supposedly lean meats like chicken, and he wanted me to join Weight Watchers, which I never did. Something I found out during my journey was that I like to do things my own way. So I completely avoided the doctor's advice and turned to the internet. I found plant-based doctors like Dr. Greger, and the first plant-based doctor I discovered was Dr. Furman. I saw him on Dr. Oz, and that first time I saw him, he mentioned the G-bombs, and that forever changed my life. Because believe it or not, after that day, I started to incorporate the G-bombs, which was greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds, nearly every day. And I credit Dr. Furman for being the start of my journey of saving my life. I mean, I've incorporated other ideas, Dr. Greger, Dr. McDougall. I really take advice of all the doctors out there, plant-based doctors. And I got to give credit to Dr. Furman for being the first one. But just researching online, that's what really turned me on to plant-based eating.
While you were researching, you must have seen the Atkins diet and the paleo diet and the keto diet. So what really spoke to you in terms of a plant-based? Because, Dr. Oz, God bless him for what he does, he has, every day he has something completely different on, and some of them.
That's what turned me off of Dr. Oz.
Right. So I don't want to spend our time talking negative about him. No. But the truth is, on his show, you'll have one thing one day and something that completely contradicts it the next day. So knowing that all of this information is out there and all these other people he has on and everything else you must have come across, what really made the plant-based diet click and bring you out of that fear? You had fear from going to the doctor, you had fear from taking the medications, you had all this fear. What made you finally say, I found something that I can follow and stick to and break my bad habits?
I think it was the timing, the right place at the right time to catch Dr. Furman, because he really made an impact on that show for me. And then I bought his book. When I found those other diets out there, I would turn to Dr. Oz again, see what else is out there. I would start to get this disagreement within me because I would hear doctors promote Atkins-like diets, and I would think, well, Dr. Furman says that would cause cancer, too much protein. So I would start to fight in my head all the bad advice out there. So really, it just took one doctor to open my eyes, and then I discovered the other plant-based doctors after that. And I basically ignored the advice of I think it's because also I tried some of those bad diets before discovering Dr. Furman. I was one of those yo-yo dieters that tried everything and prior to 2012, and nothing worked.
There's so much more great information coming your way. But before we get to that, we wanted to give an extra shout out to tell you we appreciate how much you care. Because of your contributions, no matter how big or small, you've helped us to cover hosting and production costs, as well as give a bright young intern a chance to work with our compassionate company. For those of you who want to help support the show, support learning opportunities for young plant-based students and compassionate causes, you can do so at patreon.com/planttrainers or click the link in the show notes. And now back to the show.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people I've helped who, whether I've helped them to lose weight or to come off of medications or not feel the pain in their hands anymore or what have you, get rid of migraines. And what all of those people have in common is just that they've tried everything else, but nothing else has worked.
Right. And I think what worked for me this time when I lost the weight was because it was for health. All the other times was about outward appearance, wanting to lose weight, wanting to lose that big belly. And it wasn't really about health. When I put my health first before weight, that's when the weight loss started.
And so, Rich, when people go through these kind of lifestyle changes, there's so many challenges that people face. What would you say are the biggest challenges that you had to face when making a transition of lifestyle?
I wouldn't really call it a challenge. I like learning. I guess just learning new things every day. Maybe a challenge for me was getting up to an hour on the treadmill. It took me a while to build up to that, but that also helped that first year when I lost the weight. I was doing like an hour a day for probably 6 days a week, maybe a seventh day of maybe half hour or something. But I think that was a challenge to build up the endurance. But the plants really helped give me energy. My only regret is that I wish I was completely 100% plant-based in 2012. I was probably maybe like 80% plant-based. It was much later that I became 100% plant-based, but I've never regretted, my healthy habits and increasing the vegetables. That really helped me along the way.
So I think a lot of people can relate to that. So what did you hold on to when you decided to make, the change to mostly whole foods or mostly plant-based? What were you holding on to?
I had a big fear because I was also working on muscle building and cover the tight, the loose skin to tighten up. And the big thing was protein. I had a personal trainer who was telling me that I should have 200 grams a day, which scares me now when I think about it. And I told my doctor at the time, this was a new doctor that I got. My other doctor had retired, and he told me that would hurt my kidneys and liver, and that was an insane amount. So anyway, the foods I held on to were turkey and yogurt. So I thought those were high in protein. But other than that, I didn't have much animal products. Eventually I came across Robert Cheek. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a vegan bodybuilder.
Yeah, of course. We've had him on our show as well.
Oh, you did? I'll have to check that out for sure. So I was looking up plant-based athletes because my doctor had told me about, you don't need all that extra protein. And I knew there had to be a way to build muscle without having 200 grams of protein. And during my research, I stumbled upon vegan bodybuilders like Robert Cheek. And he had a book out there called Shred It. And he also had a shredded workout journal that lasted for 13 weeks. So I thought, I'm going to do this for 13 weeks. And it was completely plant-based. I thought, in my mind, it was only temporary because I never thought I would feel as good as I did. And after 13 weeks, I was building muscle better than prior to going completely vegan. And I didn't want to go back after that. It also brought my passion up for animals. I kept watching those videos about the cows and the babies being taken away from their mothers just so that we could have milk. And I didn't want to support that industry anymore. So in combination of watching those videos and Robert Cheek, I credit those things for making me go completely plant-based. And knowing that I felt great too, it was a no-brainer.
So Now that you've lost that 150 or so pounds, because you're not really sure, what does it feel like to be lighter? And when you wake up every morning and when you look in the mirror every day, what do you expect to see? Like, have you really adopted that this is you, or is there still part of the obese or the morbidly obese part of you left?
Well, that's a very interesting question. Initially, I never could look at myself as thin. I would always see that obese person looking back at me. It took years for me to not see that person anymore. And when I see that picture of myself as obese, I don't recognize myself anymore. But it took years to get to that point. I would see the loose skin. That's another thing I want to talk about is my loose skin. And that was always a reminder of my obesity. Constantly seeing that skin, it really bothered me. It felt like I was still heavy somehow, even though that's ridiculous. I knew I wasn't also, but just seeing that skin it made me feel very bad about myself. And, I was lucky in some respects. I did bounce back. My skin bounced back. My face, my neck, my arms, the muscles have helped disguise some of the loose skin. But the belly and parts of my chest that never really bounced back. So, it's now currently because I finally had an abdominoplasty. I don't see that heavy person anymore. I see a healthy person. I think what's also helped is feedback from others. People would say after I adopted a 100% plant-based diet, "Oh my God, did you go on vacation? Your coloring looks so good." Comments like that made me realize that I'm healthy. I'm not obese anymore. So now when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm not expecting to see that fat person anymore. Just somebody healthy.
Was it a hard decision deciding to do that surgery?
It was. I always promised myself if I maintained this for 5 years and the loose skin was still there that I would do this. But I really was very, very scared because the only time I had anesthesia was when I was 5 to have my tonsils out. And I think that was the biggest fear was the anesthesia. But I did my homework and I did a lot of consultations. I probably did about 6 or 7 consultations, and I chose a doctor in New York City. Primary reason I chose him, I liked his attitude, also because it wasn't a hospital setting. I probably overthink things, but I worry about infection being in a hospital. And he does his procedures right in his New York City office, and he told me he's concerned about germs and all that. He ensures that his office is completely clean, and so that resonated with me. And I also made sure, as much as I like to research everything, to not read into anesthesia because I was scared to death, and I knew there'd be articles out there that would scare me away from it. So in a way, research is good, but it also can scare people as well. So I read about successful abdominoplasties. I saw success stories online. I didn't focus on the negatives. I just stayed positive up until the date of my surgery. But it was a very hard decision and a scary one.
So I think what you did is you surrounded yourself with positive, and I think that hearing those success stories really helped you to push through your fears. And I think that we have a lot of listeners. I mean, I know 100% that we have a lot of listeners who are already plant-based, a lot of listeners who are going through the journey and who have made it because, we get the emails, but there's also a lot of people out there who are scared of becoming a different person, who are scared of making a commitment, who are scared of all the what ifs. But that's part of the reason why, and I hope that people have noticed that we've been trying to have more transformational stories on the podcast, because hearing stories like yours and hearing all of these other transformation stories really surrounds people with positive. And, you've talked about your challenges, but also how you were able to overcome that and what kept you going and what results you got. And as a result, how much healthier, how much better, like sum it up, how do you feel so much different than you did, prior to 2012?
Right. I love that question. Prior to 2012, I never would have imagined in my life that I would be planning a half marathon, which I am this year. I never would have dreamed that I'd have this energy. I never thought I would, be where I am today. I feel great. I'm rarely ever sick. If I get a cold, it doesn't last for more than maybe a day or two. I'm not sick for weeks at a time. I don't feel sick from overeating anymore. I just a general happiness over the way I'm living now compared to then. I just feel so much better. It goes beyond the weight. It's all about health for me. And I feel like giving back, which is why I do these podcasts, because I want others to know that they too can feel great. I always say to people, if I can do it, they can too. It is a lot of hard work at first, especially if you're losing over 150 pounds. I'm not going to lie that it's all easy, but it is so worth it. The journey is incredible, and I like to tell people to just enjoy the ride. There's so much to learn, and I just enjoy learning.
I want to just step back for a second to the loose skin and the impact that it had on you. And I know that people are sometimes hesitant to do those kind of surgeries because when they look in the mirror, they see the loose skin and it's a reminder of once was and a reflection of what is now and what is going to continue to be. And some people choose to have the surgery, some people don't. And what's important for people listening that are considering doing something like that is that they need to make sure they're doing it for themselves and not for the judgment of others.
Exactly.
And that's a message that I think is really important for people to hear. And we need to be making decisions based on what we feel is best for ourselves and not doing things because of what we're afraid other people are going to think of us.
Right. And you bring up a very good point because having tummy tucks is a very personal decision, and I would never second guess anybody if they choose to have one or not, because really it's all about it's a personal choice. It really is. If somebody can live with their loose skin and are very happy with themselves, then I 100% agree. Don't do it. That if something's holding you back and you just you still feel that obese person inside. And for me, it was like a nail in the coffin to finally have this for the obesity. It just ended the obese lifestyle I had. But for others, if they can live with it, I say that's great, and I totally support them. But it is a personal decision, and I just I didn't really want to talk to others about whether I should do it or not, because really it's all about what you can live with and what you'd be happy with, if that explains it.
Right, and we had a very impactful conversation with Dr. Armando, who we know you're familiar with, on episode 297, and people that want to go back and listen to that, we'll put a link to that in our show notes at planttrainers.com. Rich, if listeners are looking to lose some weight or they know someone who wants to lose some weight, what advice would you give them at this point, knowing all that you have and have gone through the changes that you've gone through?
I would tell them to start looking up plant-based doctors like Dr. Furman and Dr. Greger, who has a free website out there, nutritionfacts.org, and not focusing on the weight loss. Focus on your health, because believe it or not, all those foods that they tell you to eat and avoid, those are the foods that will also help you lose weight, and you'll get healthier at the time. But don't focus on that number. If I had focused on the 150 number, that would have been way too overwhelming. I did it in steps, in increments. I would take maybe 20 pounds at a time and thought, I reached my goal. Now it's time for the next goal. You can't look at the whole picture. Also going plant-based, you can't think to yourself, wow, I'm never going to have animal products again. How am I going to do this? because if you think that way, you're going to go back to your old habits. For me, it was starting out as a challenge and not wanting to go back after that, realizing how good I felt. So if you just take smaller steps instead of looking at the whole picture, try plant-based for a while. I can almost guarantee you're going to want to stay that way and the weight will come off.
And were there times or weeks or even months where you were at a standstill and not actually losing weight? And did that hold you back?
Yeah, I think there was, it didn't last too long. It was probably a month or two during that first year where it slows down. I think it slows down for everybody. It's just natural. But like I said, because it was for health, I didn't stress about it. And eventually the weight did start to come off again. But if you're not focusing on weight so much, that will come. You just have to be patient and take those smaller steps, because there will be times when you're not losing so much weight. But if you realize this is about health too, the weight loss will start again as long as you keep up with your journey.
Such a great message and such an important thing for people to remember. And going from 345 plus pounds, losing 150 is no small feat. And now going from not moving very much to preparing for a half marathon again. Such an amazing accomplishment, a very inspiring story that will definitely have an effect on our listeners. Rich, thank you so much for sharing with us all that you've done and all that you're going to do. If people want to reach out and connect with you, where would be the best place for them to go?
Probably the best place to start is healthylivingct.com. That's my blog. I'm also on Instagram, rich.plant.strong. I also am on Facebook. Just look up my name or look up Healthy Living Connecticut. You'll also find my Healthy Living page there as well. And I'm very open to helping people online. Many people have always come to me for advice, and I'm always happy to give it. I think it's important to give back. So never be afraid to reach out if you have questions about how to lose weight or how to transition to plant-based eating.
Rich, thank you so much for being here with us today. We will link to all of that at the show notes at planttrainers.com. They could find it in the podcast section. And we will link also to some of those other podcasts that we talked about today, like Robert Cheek and Dr. Greger and Dr. Mondo. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you. You too.
Thank you all so much for listening to this edition of the Plant Trainers Podcast. We want to make sure that you subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, or any other podcasting platform.
We really appreciate the feedback we receive from you every time we get a 5-star rating or review on iTunes from one of our fans. It really helps other people find us just like you did.
Thanks so much to our patrons. To become a patron, visit us at patreon.com/planttrainers. Even supporting us with $1 really makes a difference in the quality of the show.
And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram and Twitter. Our handle is @PlantTrainers. Like Plant Trainers on Facebook, join our newsletter, and check out our website at planttrainers.com for awesome recipes, a list of our services, and of course, our latest podcast.
We encourage you to email your questions to info@planttrainers.com so that we can help you improve your quality of life through nutrition and fitness.
So we hope we've inspired you today. Join us again next time. And have a healthy day. Or is that too corny?
It's a little cheesy.